Albert Einstein once said that everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree, he will live his whole life believing he's stupid. And that's exactly what standardized tests do. They take future mathematicians and ask them to analyze an essay, or they take future marine biologists and ask them to solve an algebraic equation. Everyone's gone to school. Everyone's either taken the SAT, ACT, EOCT, CRCT, some kind of either state or nationally mandated test. And everyone's been greatly impacted by their scores on these tests. I went to school for 12 years. At the end of each year, I had to take one test in each of the 4 subject areas. And I have taken over 48 standardized tests, not to include my ACT or my SAT. Standardized testing is toxic to a child's creativity and individuality and is so stressful that it leads children to cheat. Standardized testing is not individualized enough to be an accurate representation of what a student does or doesn't know. The National Center for Fair and Open Testing says that these tests do not measure the ability to think creatively or deeply, and that these tests have harmful and outdated methods of education, and that these tests are narrow-minded, and they only focus on a narrow-minded skill set. Knighterrant.org states that these tests disregard any electives that a student has taken, such as business, theology, art, or technology. And that's true. These tests completely disregard that these students might be nationally acclaimed in a DECA marketing club or in a Skills USA screen printing club. And instead, these tests test them on English, writing, math, and science, even though these kids may have developed multiple skills in other subject areas. Beyond lacking individuality, the amount of emphasis put on these exams leads students to cheat. Today's high school students live in a culture that puts so much stress, the Huffington Post says, on national testing that it fosters the need, or at least the temptation, for kids to cheat. And temptation's enough for a 15-year-old. SCAR.org states that 37 states, that 75% of the United States has reported problematic cheating on the SATs or the ACTs. Beyond just physical cheating, SCAR.org states that 42 states reported performance-enhancing drug use as cheating. That's right. Kids are taking Adderall in order to be able to focus on these exams and pass with a good enough grade. Well, if the consequences for doing any type of cheating on these exams are so high, why do kids do it? Because they know that their SAT score or their ACT score affects whether or not they're going to go to their dream college, or for some kids, whether or not they're going to be able to go to college at all. Not only does standardized testing put pressure on the students, but it also puts a lot of pressure on the teachers. In my high school government and economics class, I was never taught how to balance a checkbook or calculate interest, because my teacher had to teach to the test. These tests put pressure on teachers to teach only what's on the test and to teach it so thoroughly that those kids go in there with all that information in their short-term memory and pass that test. Because teachers get paid based on how well their students do on those exams. So not only do the students cheat for these tests, but the teachers cheat. The teachers cheat students out of vital information that they might need later in life. Although standardized tests are required, standardized testing creates a stressful and harmful and overwhelming environment for students and teachers alike, only to find out that they didn't do so well on this exam, or only to find out that this exam didn't even show what they actually know, because these exams don't. These exams don't test what a student does know, they test what a student doesn't know, and they take a student and they put them in a narrow-minded field and they assign them a number based on what they don't know in that field, and then the student becomes that number. Think back to a time when you got your SAT score back or your ACT score back and you said, wow, I studied really hard for that. Why didn't I make the score that I need to get into college? if a doctor prescribed the same medicine to all of his patients? That would be traumatic. There'd people be with illnesses everywhere. So why then is every student prescribed the same test? John Jurgensen has the same question, and he addresses it in his YouTube video.
Now please, I understand how lucky I am to live in a country where there's freedom to receive an education. And believe me, I pledge allegiance. But what is it for? When a report card is more a measure of obedience than intelligence. A way of keeping score to ensure that the doorway of opportunity is wide open so long as you keep your hand raised and mouth shut. Preparing students for a world that looks completely different by the time they leave, pushing them to achieve rather than intrigue, and we believe that this is the path to success. What are we teaching them? That the ACT, SAT is a measure of who you'll be, and all we see is just a number. But the problem with that is with a standardized test, all you teach a student to be is just that. Standard, average, unremarkable. Is this really the goal? To create a globalization of standardization? A simplification of individualization? Please, will someone bring a revolution to this institution?